on the shooting incidents that we had yesterday evening, provide you what updates we are able to provide. Please keep in mind that these are all still active investigations, so information may change as the investigations go along. We will provide appropriate updates as we have information available after this press conference. We will take some questions after the press conference. We would like to keep those related to the shootings and these shooting incidents that we're talking about. I do want to acknowledge the executive command staff behind us, as well as city management that's come to attend this press conference as well. Chief Andrews will be speaking, and I will turn the mic over to her. Thank you.
Thank you, Captain Packard. So good morning. We had a very tragic loss of life yesterday in our great city, and so before I start any of this, I do want to remember that that child that is no longer with us was someone's brother, someone's son. He was something to someone. So our thoughts certainly and prayers for comfort go out to his family. So I'll just start by just giving you what you have already, which is just a brief breakdown and timeline of the shootings. I will be adding some information to that. Obviously, all of these shootings are still under investigation, so there will be some questions that I can't answer, not because I don't want to, it's just because we don't have those answers yet. Okay? So shortly after 4 p.m. Yesterday, in the 1200 block of Truman Street, officers were alerted to a shooting. Once they arrived, they located a 16-year-old victim who had been shot in the chest. The officers began to administer CPR in hopes of saving his life. The victim was transported to a local hospital, and there he was pronounced deceased at the scene. Within moments after that particular shooting, we were alerted, patrol officers on scene were alerted to a black male that was seen running from that scene with a handgun. That individual was, we feel that he was alone. He wasn't with anyone. He got into a red Chrysler Sebring. Officers then started a pursuit of that vehicle. Shortly after the pursuit started, officers determined that it was unsafe, it was unsafe to continue the chase due to the driving behavior of the suspects. And they disregarded the chase. They terminated it for concern out of their own safety as well as the safety of the general public. That same vehicle, we later found out, was stolen. It was recovered in the 600 block of Hardy Street, and we were able to process that vehicle and obtain some evidence from that vehicle. And I'll just say anyone with information in that particular case is asked to contact investigator Bergstresser, and you all have the number. It's 560-4440, extension 29538, and certainly contact Crime Stoppers as well. Within moments, maybe a little less than an hour, Fayetteville and Linwood Avenue, officers were alerted to a shooting near that intersection. They did not locate any victims on that scene. However, a short time later, an adult male and another male who had been shot arrived at one of our local hospitals in a private vehicle. Both of those vehicles had sustained injuries that are non-life-threatening. A third male walked into the same hospital about the same time. This male also sustained non-life-threatening injuries, and at that time we did not know where he had been shot. Investigators working with officers on the scene, looking at evidence, were able to determine that this particular male had been shot, and the other two had also been shot at Fayetteville and Linwood. As a result, investigators have charged one of the victims in that shooting, Javante Patterson, 31, with possession of firearm by felon, as a result of watching video from that area. The 300 block of West Pettigrew Street, shortly after 6 p.m., Durham Police Department officers responded to the sound of shots called in the 300 block of West Pettigrew. A short time after that, an adult male who had been shot arrived at the bus terminal on foot. That victim was also transported to a local hospital with injuries that are believed to be non-life-threatening. It's my understanding this morning that the injuries are non-life-threatening and he is in stable condition. A black Honda Accord was seen leaving that scene, which we now know through investigation that Honda Accord was stolen out of Holly Springs. I don't right now know when it was stolen, but it was seen leaving that scene. So that's going to be one of our suspect vehicles or vehicles of interest that we are going to try and find. So all of these shooting investigations are active. There's a lot to process here, a lot that we still don't know, that we don't have answers to. I will say that our homicide victim from Truman Street, and this is probably one of the most tragic things, in addition to him no longer being with us, his brother was shot not even a week ago on Truman Street. And so I will stop there and open it up for questions. Josh, good morning. Hey.
Just a couple things. Sum up how many people total were shot yesterday.
So we had 5 people total
And
with the one homicide.
Are these events related?
Oh, sorry.
That's okay.
He was thinking. So
That
so we had Truman,
Yeah.
and then we had the 3 people, Fayetteville and Linwood, and then we had Pettigrew.
And that's going to be my follow-up is any of these, I know it's under investigation, but any connections here to all 3 of them?
So what I can say is right now it's still very early. We have not had any indication that they are all 3 or all of the shootings are connected with each other. But again, I don't know definitively because we have not gotten that far along in our investigation.
And I can hear in your voice, I know any chief would be hard-pressed to come to the podium after a night like that, but talk about what you're feeling right now a little bit more.
I am sad. I am very angry. I am, there's a lot of questions that I have about where have we gone wrong, either as parents, as guardians, in what we do, in what our community has or has not done to support these individuals that are involved in crimes that either are victims or have perpetrated these crimes. It is, and then to see the toll that it takes on my staff. The radio last night was on fire, to say the very least. We had officers that were asking for help. We had to figure out about my staff, the watch commander, the investigators. We held everyone over. It takes a tremendous toll. It takes a tremendous toll, and that's also the frustration is when will it stop? When will our kids, when will these adults start thinking about their actions before choosing to pick up a gun and shoot and kill each other? Those are, you've heard me say, these are very adult actions, adult behavior. And quite honestly, I would encourage the guardians of these children, our parents, the village, right? We often talk about, many of us, we had a village of people, right? Have these conversations, check in with them. Don't just allow them to be on the street just because it might be convenient.
Chief, we're coming up on a busy weekend in Durham. You mentioned you all are spread thin. The radio was chaotic. Are you concerned about lots of people coming into town this weekend? And what's your message to people in Durham right now as we go into a busy spring weekend?
Thank you for that. So I would say I'm not concerned about the safety of our community. And I know that is, that sounds a bit odd considering we had the shootings that we had. I'm not concerned about their safety because I know that the work that my officers are doing right now to try and identify those that are involved and take enforcement action. Durham is despite what has happened, Durham is a beautiful place. We are a vibrant community. Don't want to be defined by this moment, by the last 24 hours. But I just want us to remember that Durham is safe. And I know that there are plenty of people that will disagree with me, and most of them don't live in Durham.
Usually in these press releases, we get a little message that says, the victim and the suspects, they were known to each other.
Mm-hmm.
We didn't get that yesterday, and, kind of building off that last point, why shouldn't we be worried? If we're Durham residents right now, in some of these areas, especially last night, one of them taking place right near the American Tobacco campus, which is a place for tourists and fun.
Well, I think you should be worried at the fact that this is happening in our community and all, not because it happened near the American Tobacco campus, right? Crime can happen anywhere. We've seen that. We've seen it in surrounding communities. But I think the fact that it's happening and it continues to happen, that's what we should worry about, not that it happened near American Tobacco, that everyone near American Tobacco is in danger, right? There are people in communities that live every day within communities that see this kind of violence. We shouldn't just be talking about it simply because it happens in one area. We need to continue to have the conversation. We should all be very concerned because this is our community. And so that's kind of my answer to you.
Do we know if any of the suspects or the victims were known to each other, or that any of this was targeted, so to speak?
So I don't know any of that right now. We are still working. I just had a big debrief with investigators, staff that are working these cases that are still working it. So as soon as we know more, certainly we'll update you. We'll send it out as soon as possible.
One of my only other things is we just talked a lot about how we should be concerned for people who are being, who are falling victim to these incidents, but more so for my safety. If I'm a person living or traveling through Durham, what do I need to do?
Well, if you see something suspicious, you report it, right? If something strikes odd to you, report it. I think to me, and many officers will tell you that if it doesn't sit well with you, it's okay to call 911 and report it. But make sure you continue that pattern of behavior in surrounding communities as well.
Chief,
I think we had, sorry, excuse me.
is there a pattern or a trend in the shootings?
So we have not seen a pattern or a trend. And it really is too early right now for us to be able to say that there is a trend here, that this is either a trend that will continue or it's just happening kind of in a pocket. But as soon as we know more, we'll because right now we're striving to be as transparent as possible, because we know that in transparency, that helps restore a balance of safety and feeling of safety with our community. And so we're gonna put out information as often as possible. Okay.
Chief, the young man who passed away.
Yes.
You said another child, was it, in his family was also shot recently. Can you share his name, any information that you have about him?
He's a juvenile. It's his brother. So
both were juveniles?
yes. 16.
Do you suspect gang activity was involved in any of these shootings?
So I don't know just yet. Our intelligence unit is upstairs working and processing names and who was connected to what and who was involved where, and is there more of something that we're seeing as far as what we talked about as a trend.
You recovered 2 vehicles, any firearms?
So we recovered the one vehicle, the Sebring. and we are looking for that stolen Honda Accord. So we've recovered evidence, have not recovered a firearm.
Chief, in
Yes,
our
ma'am.
conversation with the mayor last night, he brought up ShotSpotter. Some of these shootings were in that former footprint, and I know it's something you had asked the city to keep, and they didn't. Any thoughts on that right now?
So I will say this, and then I'll answer your question. ShotSpotter ShotSpotter has been talked about a lot. And what I will say is ShotSpotter would have alerted us to the shooting just as we got 911 calls in about the shooting. Yes, it was in a ShotSpotter area, but I don't think that the relevancy to ShotSpotter in these shootings is an equal connection to make. Yes, it was in the area, but we also knew that going into the pilot of ShotSpotter because we determined that was the highest concentration of our shootings in the city of Durham, which is how that area was determined. But ShotSpotter was a resource and a tool, and whether we had ShotSpotter now and we don't have it now, it's not going to keep us from doing the fullest investigation.
The mayor's here. I mean,
How did I miss you? I'm sorry. I'm so
I don't
focused.
wanna
I'm
cut
sorry.
your-
No,
your-
please.
Your thunder, but Leo, do you have anything you want to add to this? I know you were on
Hey,
our
Chief.
air last
Thanks.
night, but
Hey guys,
you came back for this, so.
I did. Thank you. I'm here to support our chief and our law enforcement as they process this investigation. To your specific question, on my side of things, it's a policy discussion. It's a policy matter, and on their side is an operation. So my comments around ShotSpotter is it's just another resource. And I personally and professionally, I don't think that we're in a position to take away resources or anything. I look at, just like housing, I look at public safety as a holistic approach. And that's just a policy dispute or a policy debate, rather, amongst policymakers, but also it's amongst the community. So as I've said before, there are folks that do not experience this on a daily basis, and there are folks that experience this pain on a daily basis right outside their window. And one side of that conversation, folks are coming to City Hall. The other side is not. And what I'm saying now, despite how hard things are, you're going to have to find a way to make your reality heard to policymakers, because we're making we were elected to lead, but unfortunately, a lot of what we're doing is, it is really convincing when City Hall chambers are packed with a very unified voice. And there is a voice or a segment in our community that's not really present. And what I'm saying to them is, I know things might be hard. You might be at work. You may not be able to get there, but you're going to have to find a way now to make sure your voice is heard. So when I make those comments around ShotSpotter or anything else, just like affordable housing and affordable living, anything else, it's more of a policy discussion. That's not to incorporate any operational exercises in the work that my colleagues here are doing.
Folks, and Mayor, you've had 13 hours, to process this a little bit more. And we just heard from the chief that not only do we have a 16-year-old victim, but just a week before, someone else in this person's family was killed. Shot, not killed.
Not killed, it's
Okay.
just shot, yeah.
Who cares, whatever, at this point, Also, this one family victim of horrible gun violence is a number of folks were yesterday. Do you have just some more thoughts this morning?
Yeah, I stated it, in the state of the city, the data speaks for itself. We have to do more. The commonality here is the fact that these are mostly young black boys under the age of 20. And the victims, both victims of the actual act and the ones who are committing it, are just, we're seeing the same face, a younger version of me. And that's why it's personal. So for me, this isn't political. This isn't, I don't really give a dang about what any organizing group talks about. This is a personal reality that really frustrates me. So that is my approach to this. I don't care about 501c3s or LLCs in a name. What I care about is, how do we stop the younger Leos from getting shot on these streets and from getting killed. And many of them are former students.
Mayor, that last shooting, the one that we were just talking about, both on Truman Street, you know, a lot of these shootings that we've seen recently, you know, happening in the same areas, shot spotter area, coverage area as well, but how do you tell the people who live in these places right now that they're safe, that they can even walk out on the street if two juveniles are getting shot on the same, two brothers shot on the same street in less than a week?
I think that, you know, and I won't speak for the chief, but I know it sounds weird when we say, you know, Durham is actually safe. But then you don't hear definitively that these things are connected. But at the same time, you know, as our law enforcement agency is doing this investigation, you know, I want you all to give them grace to finish that process, you know, and then we'll know if it's all connected or not. But as of right now, you know, there's not, we haven't seen where people are just driving by randomly shooting people on the street. These are not just like, I don't know, just folks just making random acts. But are these incidents connected? We don't know. I don't know. I'm here because I want to make sure I support my chief and support our law enforcement agencies as they do this hard work, you know. So, but, you know, we're not seeing this in every neighborhood in Durham. We're not seeing it all over Durham. But what we are seeing is behaviors that are responsive to the environment, that is conducive when you have certain circumstances that present themselves this way. That's why you hear, when you talk about gun violence, you hear us talk about housing, you hear us talk about accessibility, you hear us talk about transit. You know, that it's all connected. And if we have a neighborhood that produces those circumstances, these are some of the outcomes that you're going to get. That's the issue with public housing when it was created decades ago. This is what you create. So we're trying our best to have much more of an inclusive city. But it takes time and it takes resources. So that's why I keep going back to taking things away, not interested. Chief,
Thank you, Mayor.
I didn't want to take
Yes,
over
no,
your press
you're,
conference,
no,
but
you're,
I'm here to
you're more
support.
than welcome to stand here. So I just want to, just one more question from each of you, and then we want to just wrap it up. Okay, and I heard you, Mary Ellen.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you just talk about, on a night like last night, how spread thin are your officers? I know you have some vacancies in the department. What is it like?
So from where I was sitting at home, right, I can only tell you that the officers are tired. They're tired, but they know that this is their calling and this is what they want to do, and they want to do it here in this city. And so they are committed to answering the call. They are committed to investigating every single crime. They are committed to justice for a 16-year-old that was taken from us last night. It's tough. I mean, I don't know of any other way to summarize it for them, but by saying that it's tough. But they are heroes because they continue to do the work, and and they don't make any bones about their commitment to the city. So, thank you.
Do you have an updated staff number?
I don't. We can get it for you.
166 vacancies.
It's yes. We'll get you that exact information.
Is there any indicator at all that these shootings are related to any other shooting that we've seen this year so far?
Investigations right now, still we're focused on what happened last night and whether they're connected to each other. I'm certain if they're connected to other shootings, that always unravels, and we always can make that determination. So
5 shot. Oh, good. Sorry, my bad. 5 shot total, one killed.
yes, that's correct. Mm-hmm.
What is your message to the people pulling the trigger in these situations?
We will send you to prison for the rest of your life. We have the means and the ability to do it. I don't care how old you are. We have federal partners that are committed to ending this violence in this city. and we will send you away. Did you have anyone else? Okay. All right. Thank you all so very much. I appreciate it. Thank you for being here today. Thanks.
Because it was non-life-threatening. We can find it. We responded to like emails. I'll see if I can find that specific one and send it out to you.
I mean, it's probably not gonna say more than like, juvenile shot, not like threatening. It's just in the same house around here.
It was the same complex. I don't know if it was the same, like, Terrace. So I didn't really.